pessimistic, nihilistic, melancholic. It is a poem that is utterly without irony for most readings. It is a poem that doubts the very concept of love. I love it. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we're here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in two different playlists here on the channel. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, cruising towards 800 videos strong, and number two being the Dark Academia playlist. This is a poem that is the aesthetic of Dark Academia, if ever there were one. It is a poem that is not going to cheer you up, by the way. The poem in question today is Neutral Tones by Thomas Hardy, and it reads as such. We stood by a pond that winter day, and the sun was white as though chidden of God, and a few leaves lay on the starving sod. They had fallen from an ash and were gray. Your eyes on me were as eyes that rove over tedious riddles of years ago, and some words played between us to and fro, on which lost the more by our love. The smile on your mouth was the deadest thing alive enough to have strength to die, and a grin of bitterness swept thereby, like an ominous bird a wing. Since then, keen lessons that love deceives and rings with wrong have shaped to me your face and the God-cursed sun and a tree and a pond edged with grayish leaves. And I love that final couple words. Leaves that are so drab, they cannot even be gray. They are just gray-ish. So what we have here is a poem of someone speaking about their former lover. We get every sense, but not the knowledge, from this poem that the couple featured herein is no longer a couple. This is a brooding and lonely poem about a lover who has been turned on by the person with whom he was in a relationship. Your eyes on me were as eyes that rove over tedious riddles of years ago. So I think that this is a line that does a couple of different things. It's a line that basically, your eyes roving over someone the way that they would rove over tedious riddles of years ago basically says you're bored, right? You were looking at me as if you were bored. But when we put it in the context of a relationship, those years prior were the riddles from prior years of the speaker's infidelity, were the riddles of prior years of fights that these two people had had, prior fights between them that the beloved, cannot let go. So if you were using this in a context outside of a relationship, it would be easy to write this off as someone being bored. But it is, I think, in the context of a relationship, someone who is keenly interested, but not in the present, in the past. But the beloved is interested in the past because the beloved has moved on in the present. At least mentally. Physically, we will just gender these as the speaker male, the beloved female, just for ease in this poem, though I don't think there's any real inference either way. But the beloved here is questioning, why am I still here when he's done this to me before? The big question that this poem, I think, raises is, what happens when someone changes in a relationship? We're all ever evolving, right? So obviously that happens. You change in your relationship. But can you change in a relationship so that you don't know yourself? if it's a big enough change within the self, you don't know yourself. And your lover, therefore, does not know you. But what if your lover is more willing to accept the new you than the new you is willing to accept your lover? That, I think, that change there, that mechanism, that flip, that switch is what makes this a dark academic poem. It appears in this poem that it is the beloved who has gone through the change. The speaker seems steadfast in the setting, in the present of the narrative. It is now the speaker as he currently stands, reflecting on this day that has changed. The beloved in this poem has already changed and has not made that change manifest in her world. She's going to leave him. She's changed internally and is going to leave the speaker. The speaker in the poem is the same in the narrative, but is changed in the speaking, is changed in the outer world from the text. The speaker has recessed, it seems, remembering this occurrence as so drab, as so melancholic. The speaker is saying that the sun was white as though chidden of God. The leaves were gray. The very pond itself was depressing. Who needs that? But he can't leave. Even as the lover has carried on, the speaker is carrying this poem with him. Dark academia, I think, is an individualistic movement. It is a movement of inner revolution. It is a movement about transformation. It is something that is haunting the speaker in this poem. Dark academia, about the change from what I am to what I could be through the act of learning, through the act of reading, through the act of the academic. The speaker here, I think, is entering that phase, as is manifested by the poem itself. The speaker had been stuck, trapped in this moment. Surely the act of writing this poem is catharsis. Surely the act of writing this poem, putting it into an academic practice, which art, in my opinion, is, right? It does not get the sort of, it does not get the same reputation because artists are not perceived the same as academics, but they are. They are dedicating a big part of themselves to an exploration. Many artists really describe their work, describe their practice, not as creation, but as discovery. They're discovering the book as they write it. They are discovering that figure in the painting as their brushes go back and forth. It's the same thing with academia. You are constantly discovering something. And it's, I mean, what do academics study besides facts and art? So I think that these two things are more closely intertwined than probably most artists would like to admit, right? The academics do not have the same cool reputation that do the artists themselves, but it's the same thing in my opinion. Dark academia in this poem is what the speaker is entering. The speaker had the trauma, had the relationship, then the trauma, has recessed to isolation. And in the act of recounting that trauma through poem, is entering the space where the dark academia lives. That I think should be a lesson that all dark academics can take with them. The act of poetry, the act of journaling, the act of writing the trauma down can be a necessary and can certainly be a profitable act through the medium. And I very highly doubt there are many people ascribing to the dark academic aesthetic or ascetic that are without trauma, right? So that is, I think, at the base of this entire movement. That is what I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I do on this channel, so consider hitting that subscribe button and sticking around for more. And as always, I would love to have you back for more Dark Academia.